And a happy Wednesday morning to you. It is game day finally here in Edmonton, but also this is the EST Hangout presented by Mott's Clamato Caesar, the top Caesar brand in the country with over 400 million cans crushed by Canadians every single year. Cheers to the Hangout. Cheers to Mott's Clamato Caesar. Joining us today on the Hangout, I'm Matt Iwanyk, by the way, if you didn't know. Joining us for the 7th time, he was telling me today.
Wow, yeah.
McCourt from the VIP Golf Show, which during the golf season you can catch right here at Edmonton Sports Talk, as well as from the Ranch Golf and Country Club. And Jason Hills of Now Post Media. So welcome back for your second appearance, Jason.
Thank you.
It's going to be a fun day today, I think. And the city's excited to finally have some Oiler hockey back. Which
it's been a while, hasn't it? That's
last Thursday. And this isn't even a bye week for the team. You know, it's not even one of those. They just got somehow randomly this kind of week off.
Is it random, or are they trying to do that with all teams to give them a little bit of a
that's
a break?
The bye week later. I think there's well, maybe I'm wrong. Yeah. I thought there's supposed to be a bye week still this season for the Oilers.
Wow.
So this is just one of those that just happened to work out for the Oilers, that they get a second bye type thing, which I don't know. You've GM'd hockey teams and stuff before. I feel like if you have a new coach, if you're Chris Knobloch, he looks at this and goes, this is perfect to just get a little time with the team as opposed to having worried about a game.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think that for Chris Knobloch and getting some of his systems implemented with the players in a better way and more practice time, because they really don't necessarily have a lot of practice time, right? But so for him, it's great. But boy, when they were on the heater like they were, they needed to keep playing. And to have this break, it's going to be really interesting to see how they come out tonight and how they respond to that. But the timing of it was horrendous, in my opinion, anyways.
Well, in a 4-game win streak,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with Murray in the sense that if I'm Chris Knobloch, I want that time to be able to implement the system, and have guys that have been nicked up have that recovery time.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you're rolling, you want to keep playing. So, they do have a lot of home games coming up, which can be a good thing. But they're gonna, it's gonna be interesting to see how they do come out in the next. The first period, I think, is gonna say a lot.
We can say that a lot about the Oilers this year. The first period's telling us a lot, but they actually don't leave the country. When they came back from Washington, they don't leave the country until like the week before Christmas. They had the one road game in Winnipeg, but outside that, they're home. Like there's no travel and there's no border crossing at all. So they've got a nice little cushion there.
A good stretch for sure. The first period though tonight, I am expecting a little rust from the time off tonight. I think if they don't get, like in Carolina, they got down 4-0 real quick to them in Carolina. If they ever? Yeah, if they can just. Be close, be 0-0, be down by one goal in the first period, and I think they'll get their legs back and play better as the game goes on. That's kind of what I'm expecting to see. But the first period, I'm not expecting to see it good. They just need to hang on and not get blown out, not lose it in the first period.
It's not like that. They're just also had that break after the 4-game, like losing that little bit of momentum. They then get the Carolina Hurricanes.
They're good.
It's not even like you get like this is a tough opponent to start your new set part of the season ahead of Christmas break. Like they're not going to be an easy team, but I guess the flip side is you would hope that there's motivation from this team to bounce back from that embarrassing performance out in Carolina, where like they ran us in that game on the score sheet. We got to get our revenge in this one.
That's what you hope.
Yeah.
I look at their schedule though. They have a lot of home games, but some tough opponents. They got Minnesota. Minnesota, since their coaching change, has been rolling. I mean, they go and beat Calgary 5-2 last night. They got guys like Matt Boldy that couldn't do anything under Dean Evison to start the year, and now he's on fire. They've got New Jersey coming in an afternoon game. We all know how the Oilers tend to play in afternoon games historically.
Don't tell Dave Jameson that. J-Mo hates that
one. My thing is... Rob Tychkowski wrote a column yesterday for the Edmonton Journal where he talked about the layoff and how it could be good and also bad. What I'm curious to see when I read the whole thing was December, the month of December. If you look historically at the month of December, the Oilers have struggled. they can't afford to struggle this time around. If they this month, in my opinion, is going to make or break their season. If they can hold water and have some form of at least even record or a winning record, they'll be okay. But if they roll in with a 2-8 record over the course of December, they're done. They're done.
They need to be more than 500 in December. I mean, they're 8 points out. They have, whatever, 5 teams that they need to jump.
Yeah.
You look at teams like Arizona getting on a heater now. And
Isn't that weird to say?
I know.
We're talking about Arizona being actually ahead of the Oilers right now in this season.
Well,
Yeah.
they have to win, 2 out of 3 for sure.
Well, the rest of the season they have to go about 650
2 out of
hockey
3,
type
yeah.
thing.
Exactly.
2 out of 3.
They're going to have to win 7 of 10
It's-
consistently over the next few months.
They've got to jump 6 teams.
6 teams.
Yeah.
Because you got to count that last playoff team. Now they do have 2 games in hand on the Blues, who hold that last wild card spot. The Coyotes hold that first wild card spot, which is just still wild to see. But the Blues 27 points, Edmonton at 19 points, so 8-point difference. But 2 games in hand, so I guess in theory, if you could win those 2 games in hand, it's only a 4-point difference.
Over them, but there's the other
yes.
5 teams.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And you look at, too, last night, you think, okay, well, Calgary lost. They're ahead of us. That's good. But they lost to Minnesota,
Which
which is another team ahead of them.
who's as you said, like they're this is the last 10 of Minnesota, which obviously the coaching change is part of that. Like in there, there was the old coach Everson in there, 4-4-2, but they won 4 straight. Like that's where they are. They have, as you pointed out, completely have turned it around. It's going to be difficult, but like the December slump has been a thing. I didn't believe it for the longest time. People would be like, December slump. And then it was about 2 years ago when they went through their slump. I think that was going into Dave Tippett's his final few weeks. I was like, geez, they really stink in December and the early part of January. And then last year I remember going in through that. I was like, this is what we have to expect. And they gave that, they can't literally afford it this year because of how they started this season.
Exactly.
I have the numbers.
Do you?
Yeah. So last year, 4 wins in 11 games. The year before that, a 2-11-2 skid that led to Tippett's firing.
Boy.
2020, there was no games. 2019, 3 wins in 12 games from December 4th to 27th. 2018, a 6-game losing streak. 2017, a 1-6-1 slump. 2016, 3 wins in 11 games between November 25th and December 13th.
They're hurting everybody's ears right now.
2015, 1 game in 8 games, and 2014, 1 win in 12 games that led to Aikens getting fired. So I know Oilers fans don't want to hear that, but you got to hope that there's no December slump this time around.
The good part for, I guess, Oilers fans is if you don't have that December slump, you're going to feel really good about your team because of the opponents that they are going up against. Because when you look at the schedule the Oilers had in that first part of the season where they're losing all those hockey games, it's not like it was murderer's row of opponents.
No, they had a softer schedule.
They had a very
Very
and what
soft
happens when you have a
schedule.
soft schedule to start? Well, later on, you got the harder games.
Yeah.
And so when you need these wins, you're going up against those better opponents, which again, so if you do win the games, you've now established, you're back to being okay, if you make the playoffs or when you're in the playoffs, you will be a threat because of look who you've gone through. It's not like you've made the playoffs by beating the San Jose Sharks over and over, and the Sharks beat them this year.
The Sharks are on a heater.
But so that's where it's at least if you get through December and you play, I think for December 500, that's salvageable. You do need a little better, I think, because then there is that whole second half of the season for them to make up the rest of the ground. You can't obviously do worse than 500, but if you do get through that, you can feel good, like you've beaten the likes of maybe Carolina, and you mentioned Minnesota, New Jersey, Tampa, Florida, Islanders, Devils, Rangers. You'll have the Kings. You'll have the Kings and the Ducks at the end of the month.
Wow.
So if you could find a way to win.
The Kings have won 10 in a row on the road. They're 1 game away from tying an NHL record.
Well, that's
Wow.
on the road. So they're not, that's it. They're in LA for that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So they're 12 games this month.
That
If they could go,
is tough.
6-6, 7-5 type thing, you could then see, okay, as we go into 2024, maybe this team could find the wins.
If that happens, though, are you guys really going to have any confidence in them if they have a 6-6 month?
No. I'm going to be honest with you guys.
That's a good question.
I'm going to be honest with you guys. Even in this span of 4 games where they've turned it around, and yes, the numbers look promising. The goaltending is held up. Defensively, they're not making those glaring mistakes. I also look at those 4 games, and you look at Vegas. They were coming off of like 3 games in 5 nights on a back-to-back. They caught them at a good time.
And down their top 2 defensemen.
Yeah. Can't even forget that
they
either.
beat after that?
Winnipeg,
Who were lost a couple heading into that one.
and now
The Ducks, who while they started off well this season, they had come into Edmonton, I think, on a 5-game losing streak.
Like they've hit, so they're beating. They've caught some teams at the right time, and they've so that looks good. And also, I look at their schedule as well. I looked the other day. I think they've only had 1 back-to-back to this point.
It's
where some teams have had 2 or 3.
I think have they had a back-to-back? Actually,
I think they've only had 1.
Their first, I think their first is coming up. They had New Jersey Rangers next week. I feel like that's
that might be the
first back-to-back.
You could be right there. I remember.
Yes,
looking.
it is. So this is how soft their schedule is in terms of like the Oilers had a favorable schedule. Sorry to interrupt, but I'll quickly go through it. The back-to-back Thursday, Friday on the 21st, 22nd.
Yes.
Their next back-to-back after that isn't even in January.
No,
you look into February. They got 2 in February, and then they start getting a few more. March, there's looks to be 3 in there.
Yeah,
and in April, there's 3 in there. So at the end of the season, when they're gonna, that's when they'll get their back-to-backs, but. Yeah, first one is they haven't had one yet.
So I couldn't remember if it was 1 or if they didn't have any. And you're right there. Like they've had a really soft schedule. I've looked at some teams across the league that have had 2, 3 back-to-backs already, and some of those teams are Eastern teams, and you can talk all about the travel and whatever.
Yeah.
But still
But still, you're still flying.
Yeah.
It's people are saying they just have to get into the wild card spot, and that's right. But they're going to be in tough. They're going to be in tough,
and they still have a lot of questions to answer, and no real way of improving their roster unless it's dollar in, dollar out, right? So it's a tough spot.
Can I say something too?
Go for it.
I know Oilers fans are passionate,
Absolutely,
100%. But they need to lay off the PlayStation and Xbox trade proposal stuff, because this Philip Broberg stuff, thinking that they're going to be able to, trade him straight up for a Kent Johnson, or hey, let's include Broberg and throw in Jack Campbell, and we'll get Merzlikins and Kent Johnson, and we'll throw in some I'm sorry, if that deal was on the table, Ken Holland would have taken it.
And the other GM would get fired.
Exactly.
To me, it's a Samorukov for Kostin type deal. That's where
the way it has to be.
It's going to be where it's 2 players younger players who Oilers need to get rid of Broberg because he's asked for a trade. If they want to, I should say. They don't need to. They could actually hold on to him in theory. And the other team going, here's another prospect that maybe isn't working here.
Right, but you're not
That's
getting...
not a move that is seismic to the... You're not getting a top 4 defense.
You're not getting
a starting goalie.
No, and you're not getting a high-end prospect like Kent Johnson, who, has a much higher pedigree and has proven much more than Philip Broberg.
You would have loved the 1260 inbox at our old place, because we would get some great trade proposals there. Dave Jameson and I always, it was famous, would get Shea Weber trade proposals for the longest time. And there's always why would Vegas or Preds make this deal? And somebody just throw in Linus Olmark. That'll get it done. Why would Olmark get it done? Because he's garbage. You don't think Poyle knows that too? It is fun sometimes reading those proposals, because you're like, what are you thinking here? And the question I always ask back is, why would they do that? Not the Oilers. Yeah. Why would the other team do that?
But the other piece to it is still money. I mean, he makes no money, $780 or $775, I think, is what Broberg makes. Yeah. So if it's a 1-for-1 deal, it's got to be $775 coming in. So I don't know if I would trade him, because a lot of defensemen take a longer
200
time
games. Some people now say 300 games, and he's at 72 or something like that.
And they've completely mismanaged his development.
Right, and they are right now too. He's got to play.
He's got to play. So he's either got to play him over a guy like Desharnais, or
put him back in the minors,
and
bring up somebody else that is not that type of a prospect that is going to sit in the stands. It's illogical.
Like, it makes no sense to me why they've kept him up this long.
Yeah. Which is
To
why
just
there's
sit there.
frustration on their side.
If I'm
makes
Philip
sense.
Broberg, I would be upset too.
100%.
Because this isn't on him. It's on the organization. How can you expect a defenseman to develop when he's playing 6 minutes a night?
Or sitting in the
Yeah.
press
Or
box.
sitting in the
Or not
press
playing.
box.
Doesn't make
Or
sense.
not playing. Or
Well, that was the
if he
issue.
does play and then he makes a mistake, I'm going to sit on the bench.
That was the big issue I remember with Evan Bouchard a couple of seasons ago. I'm trying to remember which one it was. Maybe it was the Canadian bubble season, or was it the year after, where he was with the team but they never played him. And it was like there was a point where it's like, why not just get him into the Bakersfield?
Yeah.
Let him play.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
As opposed to having him sit around. And I know there is a value to being around practice and being around the team. There is some to that, but nothing's better than playing hockey. And if he's not going to play, have him there. And I think it was the Canadian bubble because it was the worry of, well, if they need to call him up, you got to deal with the COVID and there's a couple of restrictions and it might take a while to get there. But it's like, but you're dealing with a short-term thing here. Long-term, you might be hurting development a little bit here. And I don't know. I think we could all look at this organization right now and be like, they do struggle developing defensemen.
Yeah. I mean,
Players, period, maybe. Like
Yeah, that's fair.
Dylan
That's
Holloway's
fair.
an example. I mean, he's still young, and what's Dylan Holloway going to end up being? We don't really know. You know what? We don't even really know what Broberg's going to end up being yet, right? Like,
look at Ryan McLeod.
Yeah.
He's another. Like, you can look at all the fancy numbers and those look good. And I am a believer in analytics to some degree, but there's also the eye test, and
There's got to be a mix of both.
there has to be. There has to
100%.
be.
You can't tell me the eye test doesn't have any sort of value. There's a little bit there. There has to
100%.
be.
100%.
We've all seen enough sports to at times realize
100%.
there's something that you can't quantify in numbers that you could say that there's something with that player. But there's also analytics is very important too because there are things we've learned through analytics
Yes.
that we've never known before. And we go, oh, that's actually like important, and you can quantify certain things that we've learned. So
I was glad to see that Knobloch went back to Sam Gagner
yeah.
because I didn't understand why they were not playing him over a guy like Adam Ernie. I feel like Gagner is a guy who's reinvigorated their bottom six. I mean, every time he's been out there, what's he done? He scored a big goal. He just gives energy.
He's got that grit that you wouldn't expect, and it's like of all the people that are going to the tough areas in a sense are going to the net, it's Sam Gagner.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah, exactly. So for a while I was like, why does he keep putting in a guy like Adam Ernie over a guy like Sam Gagner, who you know what you're going to get. I mean, you know what you're going to get from Adam Ernie, and it's not much on a lot of nights. He's a physical presence.
is he really?
He can be.
yeah.
He can be. I mean, that is his role.
For sure.
Whether he actually does it or not.
Yeah. Because
But yeah, it's so again, it comes down to the eye test. Like, sometimes you just see things and, when it comes to Broberg, they need to make a decision now. And what's come out now just recently with this trade request, not trade request, whether they're shopping him, whether they're not, it's not a good look.
Well, if you Ken Holland, who cares? You're out anyways. Yeah, that's the one thing. You do what you need to do, whatever. I don't know. It doesn't matter to you. It's on Jeff Jackson in that sense. But I don't know. I don't care that a player sometimes asks for a trade. I go with you make the best decision for the organization
Right.
as long as you have the rights.
Right.
You don't have to
And-
do that.
and I'll say
if
this.
you go and say at a point, hey, we're going to need you in the lineup, Broberg better be enough of a pro, unlike Zach Wilson, to go play.
Well, and he needs to, when he gets that opportunity,
little dig
he needs to improve his trade value so people will
that's
step up and want him. And
That was the thing with Puljujärvi back in the it's if you want to get out, one of the best things you could do is go play well, actually.
Yeah, 100%.
Because then another team's going to be interested, and the Oilers are going to be more likely like, hey, we could get a return for you that we like.
yeah,
Have at her.
Here's what I got to say though. Like, he needs to go down and develop, I think, or he needs to come up here and play. But he's not getting those opportunities to play here. So, I think if I'm an NHL scout or if I'm an NHL GM, I'm going to want to see Broberg play at this level.
Yes.
Like, it'd be all nice and dandy if he goes down to Bakersfield and plays 25 minutes a night and looks good. That's fine, but that's Bakersfield. What can he do here? So if I'm going to give up any kind of an asset, what am I giving up for a guy that,
But then this goes back to that the asset, it has to be money in, money out, and you're not getting a player for that. So, like, I think if you're the Oilers, the only thing you really could hope for is that you are building a bigger trade, and Broberg brings in a little extra value to incentivize a trade, right?
Yeah.
That'd be the only other thing I think you could hope for if you're the Oilers, but I don't think that that's going to be there.
Right, but what pieces do they have to move?
Well,
In terms of, like,
That they could
other
actually
pieces?
that they could include him in a deal with. I don't.
That's the tough
their
part.
prospect system is bare.
Bleak.
Well, I
It's
mean,
really
it's hard to trade somebody from the roster too, because
Yeah.
whatever you trade away from the roster,
You need
whatever
to
you
replace
can
it.
trade away, you can't replace. Like, there's not an internal even just like bump this person up
Yeah.
to fill that hole. And the other guy, like, you're not touching the top. Is it 6? Nuge, Draisaitl, McDavid, Hyman, Kane. Top 5.
Yeah.
You're not touching them anyways, but they all have no move, no trade clauses. You can't. You're not trading. You can't trade Darnell Nurse.
No.
You're not trading Matthias Ekholm.
No.
So I get the only value you actually do have, I think, on the roster is Evan Bouchard.
Yeah. And I know people. He's a lightning rod. People either love him or hate him. I mean, I like what he does for you offensively, but defensively, I don't know. I don't know if he thinks the game good enough at the defensive level. To me, I don't know if that'll ever change. So, I mean, he is really their only other asset that they can move.
Fogle and McLeod, I think, are.
You could move those guys,
Yeah,
but you're
not getting much
You're
back.
not getting
There's
much
not the
back.
value. Yeah,
Right.
There's no value there.
100%.
And the other thing is the first round pick. But truthfully, if you're the Oilers, are you in a position to trade that first round pick?
Absolutely
at this point,
not.
And I'll say this too with Broberg. Okay, so if you do trade him, and then you have an injury on the back end, then what? It's not like you can be like, say. I mean, it depends who it is, but are you bringing up Cam Dineen? Are you bringing up what was the young kid who had a really good camp?
Ben Gleason?
Yeah, Ben Gleason.
He's not that young, is he?
No, and he's
No,
not
he's
young.
not.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
28,
he's not young.
I think. Even,
I'm actually
but-
surprised he hasn't seen a call up yet.
Well, he's the guy that should be here and not Broberg.
100%.
Right. That makes way too much sense. But, the other piece of this, you talk about Broberg and Campbell, like that goalie situation has to sort itself out. But the thing is, if the Oilers trade Campbell, I mean, what goes out, and same thing you're probably talking about, well, I'll just trade Campbell's going with Broberg, the first round pick that would be crazy to trade, plus another prospect or two. And then you're depleting. I mean, it's astronomical what that price is going to be to trade him. If you buy him out, he's on the cap. I mean, both of those options are horrendous.
Yeah, and
But that's where I would try to trade Campbell, but I'm eating half his salary. Where I could hopefully lower the trade value then at that point, because I'm going to hold on to the books for 2 more years, 2.5 or whatever it is.
3 more years.
Is it 3 more years
He
after
has
this year?
3 more years after this year.
Because I absolutely can't stand buyouts. I think it's when the contract's done and I'm still playing a player. If I was a team, I hate that. I hate that mentality. I would rather eat part of the money
Now.
have it partly on my books now, and not have to deal with it later at all. Because the Oilers still have James Neal for 2 more years.
yeah, and here's this though, Matty. How when you have the cap going up, okay?
Yeah,
You
it's
have the
going.
cap
Most of it's going to
Connor Brown's
Yes.
contract
Yeah.
for a guy who may or may not even be on the roster next year.
That was a huge
won't
mistake
be.
by this
Yeah.
team. Just I still can't believe they allowed him to play that 10th game at this point of the season. I would have understood it if we were in January and February and they're in the playoff push or something, and he was playing well in Bakersfield, and you go, you want to know something? Let's give him a shot now. I'd understand that, but at that point, I still can't believe that they did that. And Jack Campbell, I'm just looking, he's got 3 more after this year,
Right.
So
Which
it's
is why
3
it's so expensive to trade him.
But that's where if you can eat part of the money, maybe it lowers the price of what you're having to give up to get rid of him.
Absolutely would. And there's teams with cap space that could broker that and take another part of it. So Campbell is half here, half of that, half is on another team. And those trades happen all the time at trade deadline.
But are they even under a situation where they can eat half his contract when they have Connor Brown they have to deal with next year?
Well, there's still an out on Connor Brown. We talked about Connor Brown a lot because it was his 9th game, and you and I were sitting there saying you can't play him.
No.
But say the season doesn't go turn around and they're not going to make the playoffs at the trade deadline. They can gas out Cap, and then he rolls into this year. So
some of that money will start going here. But for that to happen, the Oilers have to be out the playoffs.
Right, because then they got to get rid of
because you're getting rid of money to get
trading money off out of here. Yeah.
So it's because when you look at the number next year, like everyone will look and go, oh, Cap's going up, but for the Oilers it's going up $1 million. Really, because you're gonna likely have that Connor Brown. Who do they have to sign for next year? Warren Fogle needs a contract.
So he's good as gone.
Matthias Janmark needs a contract. Hamblin needs a contract. Brown, Ernie, Gagne need contracts, so not a big deal. Broberg's an RFA. Desharnais's a UFA. Pickard's a UFA. Holloway's an RFA.
Nothing big. Nothing that's going to cost
big,
you
but
anything significant.
No, but
you've got to improve the team.
To your team.
You can't add.
You can't improve. Exactly. So you've got to try to then, at that point, get rid of a contract to then bring in some other spots. And who are you willing to do that with? That's the issue.
So you have basically $1 million, and if you lose Warren Fogle, who has been one of their better forwards, consistent forwards all year, and he is what he is. He's a third-line hockey player. But if you take him out of the equation, if you take Janmark out of the equation, you're going to have to rely on a Borgo to come in and take up one of those spots. Even then, if you keep James Hamlin up here and re-sign him to a, $925 or whatever, they're going to have to make how are they going to fill out their forward core? They're going to have to. I don't know.
They're not in a good spot.
No, they're.
This window that's here, like, because we talk about the prospect pool is so bare. Once Connor and Leon are not here, and this window is over, the Oilers, that decade of darkness is back, I think, because there's nothing there. I mean,
it's going to be one of the most important summers coming up for the Edmonton Oilers because as of July 1 is the first time you could sign officially Leon Draisaitl to an extension.
And do you want to go into the season next year with him?
You cannot go into the season next year without him on a contract. Like, in my mind, I believe Leon Draisaitl is part of the solution. I believe he should be part of this organization. But there does come a point where I believe if you're the Oilers, if he's saying, I'm not signing, you probably have to look to move him.
Absolutely.
And because you can't afford to just lose him for nothing the year later. But that sets the French, because if Leon signs, Connor's signing. Like, I think you could go, we know that, okay, this is going to be fine for this number of years. However much Leon signs for, however much Connor signs for. That But it all comes down to, the month of July. Can the Oilers get Leon done? Because if they can, great. But if they can't, what is going to happen?
And what's that number going to look like? Because people think, well, he's so tight with McDavid, he's going to take a discount. His last contract was already a massive discount. Massive
discount.
It ended up being a discount. Make up for that.
And when he signed, it wasn't a discount. Everyone's like, 8.5, that's a lot. But then it ended up being this huge discount. But no, and he deserves his money at that point.
100%. Right? And if I'm Leon Draisaitl, I'm saying, why would I take...
It's double digits. It's 12 to 15 range a year.
100%.
The benefit is, because that contract will start not next year, the year after. The cap then should go up again. And as long as the Oilers don't do another stupid contract where they have another penalty the year later for an then that will eat up some of that money, and you have that money coming where you could pay. And when Connor's contract is up, you're not going to need that much to fill the gap for him because he's already at a high number at 12.5. It's not like he's going to all of a sudden be a 20.
Right, he's going to be a couple million more.
So that one's not the big one. It's getting from Leon's contract, but the cap should be going up. That you
is
should.
Is it going to go up 6?
Potentially.
It's
in 2 years.
It's going to start. It's going to start skyrocketing. So it's going up 4 this year. Let's say it goes even up 4 the year after. So that's another $5 million right there because of but then the Connor Brown comes off the books at that point, right? So there's $8 million right there. So Connor or Leon going from 8.5 to 15, you're covered.
Right. But you're not able to improve the roster 100%. Anywhere else.
100%.
See, and what I never understood about the Connor Brown contract is, I get it. You saw the Boston Bruins do it with Patrice Bergeron. But that's, a guy near the end of his career who has earned that right. and he gave them an opportunity last year to, get them in. They were a cap tough. They were tough under the cap, and they signed him to a sweetheart deal with those bonuses in mind. And if I'm the Boston Bruins, I'm thinking, okay, whether Patrice comes back or not, we're willing to do it. And they were able to go out and make some shrewd signings, I thought, this year, getting James Van Riemsdyk and Kevin Shattenkirk and, some other guys to come in and fill the void there. But why would Ken Holland decide, well, this is how we're going to approach this with a guy like Connor Brown? What has Connor Brown done in his career that he deserves that? Like, 'cause
Nothing.
when you saw that with Patrice Bergeron, people were like, wow, I didn't know you could do that.
The argument was he was going to get that money on a contract.
The following year.
Well, this year, from another team.
Yeah.
But the Oilers, the only way they could do it is if they offered him the bonuses, and they made it 10 games, which I get to one point is, okay, if that's how you get this player, you've got to give him this money. The flip side I say is if that's what it takes to get this player, don't sign the player.
Right.
It's not worth that at that point. Connor Brown isn't worth that for you then. So why are you doing that? If another team wants to go pay him 3.5, let them go pay him 3.5, go find somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
But because they let the bar be so low, like being 10 games is just ridiculous.
Yeah. It's
ultimately, like this whole salary cap conversation, how they deal with Jack Campbell is so paramount to.
Would you guys give him a as they call it, look-see again in the NHL?
They have no choice.
They have no choice.
Yeah, because
no choice.
The other options are horrendous. The best option is somehow he finds his game and they can plow through it. But it's he has to get that one more chance. But I think.
They have no choice. And honestly, like,
they can choose not to give him another chance and just straight up go trade for a goalie. Or try to get that deal done, That is the other choice you could do is just say, we've seen enough, we're done.
Okay, but then you have to either trade him or buy him out. Those are your two.
Well, the buyout can't do during the season,
both of those are just painfully horrendous options.
And, do they want a situation where, last year, Stuart Skinner, in my opinion, ran out of gas in the playoffs.
100% he did.
Had to play a ton. He's now in this situation again, and they don't, they can't rely on Calvin Pickard. They weren't able to rely on Jack Campbell. If I'm opposition, I mean, you saw it last week with the Calgary Flames when they had addressed the emergency backup. And Dan Vladar was saying literally like I think it was they were playing Vegas, right? And Vegas just kept running them. A couple times were accidentally on purpose, whatever.
But when there's an
e-bug. Why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm opposition, I'm thinking, geez, maybe I might just skate through the crease and give Stuart Skinner a bump. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and I know it's there's a thing. There's a line
code,
if you don't want to hurt someone,
and all
but
that
there's also a gamesmanship.
100%. And I'm not saying I would do it.
No,
but I'm just saying like.
Well, if a player is close to the crease, they're not also opposed to being a little too close.
No,
because if
look what happened last year with Zach Hyman. Zach Hyman when they played Ottawa, and he drove into Anton Forsberg, and he blew Forsberg's knees to bits.
Stu's a big, strong man, though.
Yeah. He can handle it.
He can handle it. But now because of the position that they've put themselves in early, they have no choice but to ride him. And if he burns out...
that's the thing. I'm looking at the schedule. Like, you need somebody back-to-back New Jersey Rangers, which is right before Christmas. You can't play Skinner in both those. You need
I think that's when they call up Campbell at some point.
Can you play... I just also don't think he could play the next... Because now he's had this break here. So he's played a few in a row. That's fine.
Yeah.
You've had the 5 days off.
Yep.
Should be okay now.
Yeah.
But you go Carolina, Minnesota, New Jersey, Chicago, Tampa, Florida, Islanders, Devils, Rangers. The longest break you have there is between Florida and the Islanders. It's 2 days off. Every other one, it's you're playing every second day. I don't think you can have Stuart Skinner playing that whole stretch.
No.
And no offense, Murray, but there's the Chicago game next Tuesday. You've got to have someone, whether it's Jack Campbell, whether it's Calvin Pickard, that's the game you're looking at and going, you need to have someone there.
And because you cannot bring Jack Campbell up and to have another look-see and throw him in the net against the New Jersey Devils or the New York Rangers, because both of those teams can light anybody up for 6-8 goals. So,
but at the flip side, if Jack Campbell comes up against the Blackhawks, and he looks okay, is it anything special?
No.
Like, are we
No,
sitting
but
there going like, he's back? Like, and I'm not trying to disrespect the Blackhawks, but it's going to be a tough season. No Taylor Hall now. You know, they're going to be close to the bottom still. I know you're a Blackhawks fan, so I don't want to.
Hey,
But,
it's
like,
a very
it's-
different feel for my Blackhawks this year compared to last year
There's promise.
because we have so many rookies playing this
But
year. But
it's just like, okay, so cool. He plays Chicago, plays well. Now he gets the Devils, Rangers, one of those games, and it's like that's such
at
a
least
huge
that's
risk.
a starting point. Let him come
guess.
up and play the Blackhawks, and then if he does well, okay, then maybe be a little more comfortable. But I don't think you can do his first game against one of the offensive juggernauts like those two teams.
But what happens if he comes in and, doesn't perform?
Lays an egg.
Lays an egg against a team like Chicago.
Then you know what you're doing if you're Ken Holland, which is Stuart Skinner's your guy, and you need to either go get a solid backup for the rest of the season to spell off Skinner at times, or you need to go get a starting goalie that challenges Stuart Skinner and could be the starter of this team. Like, you need to straight up go do that if you
100%.
care about
So
this
then-
season. But I don't know how you get that done. I'm not a $5 million GM.
Yeah,
So
you're right. It would have to get
I'll
done.
leave that to Ken Holland and Jeff Jackson to figure out. But we then get an answer on Jack Campbell that it's done with the Edmonton Oilers.
right.
So say you don't have a deal for Campbell. Say he comes up and he doesn't perform, and you're like, okay, we can't rely on him, and you can't trade him. You send him back down. Then you go out and you have to try to get another,
Merzlikins or
Merzlikins is a $5 million goalie.
yeah, you have to have Campbell in that.
You'd have to have Campbell in
gotta
the deal.
go.
I'm talking like going out and getting a Spencer Martin
Okay.
or
I like Blackwood out of San Jose. I think that's a gettable.
Well, the thing with San Jose too
Yeah.
is because they're so bad, is there a way you could dump money with them? Right?
Yep.
Like where
And
you
they're gonna
can
be
work
bad
on
for
a
a
deal.
while.
For them, if you're Mike Greer, you're sitting there going, I don't care if I'm taking a little extra cap because I can afford it.
but then if I'm Mike,
I'm
Mike
getting
Greer,
a pick out of it, or I'm getting some
I'm
value
getting
for it.
if I'm Mike Greer and you're saying, well, you want Mackenzie Blackwood. I think Mackenzie Blackwood has a ton of upside. I'm not just going to give him away
No.
because I think they have someone there.
But you also there's a way to make a deal work with Campbell going there money wise because it's not
I'm
necessarily
asking-
not necessarily money in money out at that point.
No.
You could send money. Now you're adding to that to get that money there, but you don't have to bring money back because the Sharks could withhold that money.
Right.
That's
And
the
I'm
benefit you have of a deal with the
But
Sharks.
if I'm Mike Greer in that scenario, I'm saying, okay, Kenny boy, you want me to take on Jack Campbell's contract, and you want Mackenzie Blackwood. I want 2 first-round picks.
Well, it's 2 first-round picks no matter what.
I know.
Yeah, so
Like,
no matter what team it is.
You're not just gonna get a Mackenzie Blackwood and giving them Jack Campbell. You're gonna have to pay not just one
but
first
maybe
round
this
pick.
is where the Oilers try to hope fall into a Broberg because maybe a Broberg with a first is enough for Mike Greer at that
but
point, right?
if I'm
Where-
Mike Greer,
but you're getting a nice prospect, a young defensive prospect that maybe Mike Greer sits there and looks at and goes, because according to Frank Cervelli, there's a lot of interest in Broberg. Maybe Mike Greer is one of those guys who sits there and goes, this is a guy that could be a top 4 defenseman in the NHL.
Down the road,
We're
sure.
in the process of developing, so yeah, we'll take him. In our mind, that is a first-round pick. It's like Matthias Ekholm was 2 firsts. You sent Reed Schaefer as a first,
Right.
and you traded away
So
a
are
first.
they able to-
So Broberg and a first and maybe something else.
Borgo.
Well, that's 3 firsts now.
Exactly.
That's what I think the price is. But that's the price for them to take on the contract. Now you got to pay for Blackwood.
yeah.
Which I don't necessarily think that'd be a lot. I think Blackwood's kind of ended up. They have that other young guy there that they traded for from Minnesota a couple of years back.
Kakkonen.
Yeah, and I think he's probably potentially their goalie of the future. Maybe I'm not 100% sure, but
I think they're 2 half 1 doesn't of the other.
Yeah.
Whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
They're very. I think they're pretty comparable,
yeah,
but
isn't Blackwood a little older?
yeah, I believe he is. I mean, that's a massive pill to swallow. To give up, I mean, you had to make the move to get Ekholm last year, and you bit the bullet. You traded the first. You traded another, essentially a first, and Reed Schaefer. Now you're going to go out and do it again. Is like you look
It
around the
leaves the
league.
cupboards
You look
bare
around the
big
league.
time.
You look around the league, Matty. Has any GM in the history of the league ever done something like that to that degree in back-to-back years?
I will say, just off the top of my head, the gut tells me I could probably look at Jim Rutherford with Pittsburgh Penguins. He was a guy that was
True.
made moves. He did things like that. And
True.
I don't know if he did or not. I'm just saying if there was one I would throw out there, maybe Jim Rutherford.
True.
But for the most part, no.
But I'm not talking about. I'm talking about like, okay, so last year the move was to improve your team and be better.
Yeah.
A movie. This is a move to clean up a giant mistake.
Flip side, you could look at it though and go, it's fix this mistake, but it also allows you to improve this team because you open up cap. That can go fix this team. That's the flip side to that, where now you're not fully anymore now money in, money out type of thing. You have the cap. Because I think moving forward, GMs nowadays, you want an owner that wants to spend to the cap.
You need it.
100%.
But if you're a GM, you should never spend to the cap if you don't
need to have
you
that
should always
flexibility,
hold a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Because there is having $2-3 million at the deadline is value in itself
Yeah,
that most teams now don't have. And you are laughing at that point if you're one of those teams. And I think that's something GMs are going to maybe start looking at is, we can spend to the cap, but it's not something we're always going to definitely do.
Yeah. So I can think of what did Tampa Bay trade last year to get Tanner Jeannot at the deadline?
They traded multiple picks. I think it was a first, a second, a third.
Are you looking that one up? Okay.
Plus Foot.
Okay, because that trade, if my memory serves, was
That was a
most
big
people thought
Foot,
was
along with a package of 5 draft picks, including a 2025 first round pick, so 2025 first, that is lottery protected.
Yes.
Okay,
So
but the year before that, they traded with my Blackhawks. They got Brandon Hagel from my Blackhawks, who's a good young player. They just signed him to a big deal. They gave us Taylor Radish, who had this basically, I think, 2 less goals than Brandon Hagel did last year. They gave us Boris Kachuk, who's, fourth line. I mean,
he was a good prospect coming out of junior.
They also gave us their first round pick from last year and their first round pick this year. That's why it was a 2025, because we have their first round pick last year and this year. I mean, so that's 2. They've traded away 3 first round picks in a row.
Julian Brisebois has never been afraid to trade draft picks. I mean, I believe he traded a first round pick for Barclay Goodrow. You look at
But there's a good team Coleman, that they have there.
They have a good team.
And they won cups, and now you're trying to hold on to this.
They're trying
100%.
to, but they're not. They're not even in a playoff spot right now.
But you know what? Well,
how far out are they?
They're in there.
No, I know. I just want to see,
They're
like,
in there.
I love John Cooper as a coach, and I just want good things for John Cooper. I'm not going to lie.
They got in as a wild card last year. If my memory serves me. They're
could have.
aging.
They were in the 2-3 spot because they played Toronto.
They're the last team out, the first team out, I should say, tied with the Islanders at 27 points. But the Islanders have 2 games in hand, so they're right on that cusp. But they've played 26 games, which is more than almost anyone in the Eastern Conference. Yeah. So they got to start picking up a little bit.
And now that they have Vasilevsky back, I think that's going to help.
For sure.
They'll be a playoff team, but is the window done for the cup?
I think.
I think it is.
It's almost to the end.
But I'll say this. I know they gave up a lot for Brandon Hagel, but I watch a lot of Eastern Conference games. I've watched a lot of Tampa over the last number of years. I love Brandon Hagel as a player, and it's worth what they gave up for him because that kid
goes through the wall.
Absolutely. He goes through the wall. He is that type of player you need in your top 6.
Boy, did the Edmonton Oilers need him instead of Connor Brown.
they could have had him.
The good part for, I guess, if you're looking at the Lightning perspective, is the moment you're ready, the window's closed, there are pieces you could trade to go get assets back, right?
100%.
And you could refill your cupboards, and you could maybe hopefully do a quick rebuild.
Look at
and that's why you trade away those first if you are at that top team, because you hope then, if you do need to come down, you could trade some pieces away, fill up the cupboards, and then come back up.
Right.
Steven Stamkos is unsigned. There's a guy that potentially, I'm not saying they move him.
They won't do it during the season.
He's a free agent at the end of the year.
But he'll walk.
I'm eyeing him up to be a winger for Connor Bedard next year in Chicago. I think
that's not a bad move.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're Steven Stamkos, is that where you want to play?
I don't know.
Well, I tell you what, the Blackhawks they're not going to be bottom now. They're going to contend for a playoff spot next year, and the year after that, oh my God, they have the number 1 prospect pool in the league.
They've got a ton,
and like right now, we're playing 6-7 rookies most nights that are all legit players.
I agree. You can say the same thing about a team like Anaheim. They're playing a lot of.
They're going to be good.
They're going to be good.
They're going to be good.
They take their lumps. That's what you're going to get with a young team.
I think we saw the glimpses of what the Ducks could be at the start of the season.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what they could be.
If I'm Steven Stamkos, if I'm not staying in Tampa,
I guess it's what do you want next in your career? Like, because he's won. So is money going to be the motivating factor? Is it winning? Is it going to be lifestyle? He's got a lot to choose from.
Yeah.
Like he's not one of those guys that's I'm still chasing that cup, and I'll be in. I honestly wouldn't. I don't know. I'll say that with Stamkos,
but there you go with Tampa though. Like they have the option. If they choose to re-sign him, great. If they don't, and say they fall out of the playoff picture this year, they could move him for a ton of assets. Mm-hmm. And if things start to fall off the wayside in the next year or two, I mean, they got a ton of guys.
There's a lot you could do
that they could do a quick rebuild, and they're not stuck in.
You keep a Vasilevsky, you keep a Victor Hedman,
but
you could trade almost other pieces.
Though. You need that year in there or whatever where you can trade off some guys. Like, I mean, hey, last year I was expecting Kane and Taves to bring in an army of assets, and because of injuries with both of them, it didn't play itself out that way. But but to turn,
Chicago could have. Unfortunate for them that they had those injuries, but you're right. I mean, had Taves been healthy enough and had Kane been healthy enough, they could have. They could have
massive.
And I don't think the Kings did this. The Kings went down with the ship.
They did.
They kept everyone around a little too long. And I don't think they got any real value for play. Just off the top of my head, I'd have to go deeper dive and stuff. But they've now got. But there was a time where they had a GM change, all of that. They had to make some big moves. There wasn't a
But they weren't
go down for a year or two.
Yeah.
But they moved all their pieces, got the prospects and the picks that they needed, and came back up. I'd have to look. I don't think because Brown stayed to his whole career. Doughty's still there. Quick, they just traded last year. There weren't a lot of pieces that I don't believe moved from. Kopitar's still there.
They had the year where they got the number 2 pick, and they got Quentin Byfield.
Yes.
But they've drafted well.
And
they've drafted
how important
well.
is that?
That's huge. You look at their
the development. I guess it's not just drafting; it's the development.
Look at a guy
which goes back to the Broberg and conversation, the Holloway, and all that. Like it's also that development of these guys.
Look at a guy like Mikey Anderson. No one talks about a guy like Mikey Anderson. Yet
this city does when it talks about Leon Draisaitl.
Oh, how I forgot about that. Yeah, I mean, but he's a guy that can play 20+ minutes a night. He's paired with Drew Doughty. No one talks about him. His game's not flashy, but he does the job. You look up and down their roster. Guys, look at Trevor Moore. Trevor Moore was undrafted. Toronto let him go. I mean, he's a point a game player this year. That's Trevor Moore. Like this, and the guy's not the greatest skater, but all he does is score.
Well, you look at Quentin Byfield. I don't know his stats off the top of my head, but this is the first year that he's actually really produced, and so they brought him along, and it took him some time as a number 2 pick. I mean, you're maybe expecting more early, and there was talks of him getting moved out of there, but they stuck with him, they developed him, and now it's starting to pay dividends.
When I was freelancing a few years back, I did a story on Quentin Byfield during the World Junior Tournament, and I remember there was all kinds of. Because he made the team, his second year, he was still one of the youngest players on the team. And people were saying, well, why isn't he producing? Like, he's still young. And I remember talking to him, and he said, that kind of stuff doesn't bother him. Like, he wants to he will, whenever he makes LA, he'll make it. He has no problem. Like, he was very, there was no cocky attitude with him. He was very I will get there. I'll get there when I get there. And you watched how they developed him. They let him play a little bit on the 4th line. Then they sent him down to the minors. He developed down there. Then you saw last year, halfway through the year, hey, you know what? We know you play center, but we're going to play you on the wing, and you're going to play with Anze Kopitar. Then you saw him start to produce. And now this year, that line with Kopitar, Kempe, and Byfield, that is a massive line.
Yeah, Kempe he's so good.
Kempe scored 40 goals last year.
Yeah, and
40 goals.
And most people don't even know who he is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're the team. Everyone talks about Colorado and their firepower. Everyone talks about Vegas, and I mean, they won the cup. No one's talking about LA, but they have guys that no one talks about.
And they might not have to face the Oilers in the playoffs,
Hey,
for them, in that first round, it's them at Vancouver potentially. As of right now, they'd maybe potentially meet the Oilers in a second round, or maybe the Oilers are on the other side of the playoff bracket. You wouldn't have to meet them to the conference finals.
Or what happens if LA wins the division and then Edmonton squeaks in as a wild card and they face?
Well, then maybe that's the first round there. But
could you imagine?
I don't think the Kings would. I'd take the Oilers right now on that one, straight up.
Oh my!
Really?
Yeah. I think they have their
Matty.
number. The Oilers going into the playoffs hot, taking on the Kings. I'll take the Oilers. I'll still take that.
No. Not the way
take this
LA's
one.
playing this year.
I know.
What the Kings don't have is this guy named Connor McDavid
Or Leon
Draisaitl. I mean,
But they have depth.
I know,
but
but
they have
they
depth
have-
like
They
Vegas.
challenged the Oilers well,
They have
but in
depth
the
like
end,
Vegas.
I don't know. Maybe it's just the Edmonton in me saying Oilers in that series. I don't think the Oilers would go on for a long run. Like right now at this point, I don't think the Oilers are on set for a long run in the playoffs.
LA is
but-
so much deeper.
Yeah,
So much deeper. They're built like Vegas up front.
well coached.
They're well coached. They're deeper
where
on the
did
blue
that
line.
coach used to coach?
Yeah,
They're deeper on the blue line, and I'll say this too. You talk about teams that have gone through troubles and trying to win, and then they break through. Maybe the LA Kings, after losing to the Oilers the last couple of years,
this is that time.
this is the time where they do break through.
Well, I mean, Cam Talbot's been great so far this year, but I
Is he
don't
the
know.
guy?
Is he? That's where I wouldn't have the confidence in LA in the playoffs. That I wouldn't pick them, but.
But do you have
never know.
confidence in a Stuart Skinner if he's getting burnt out by the end of the year to get into the playoffs? The same thing happened last year.
Confidence
sure.
for a round. For a single round.
Yeah.
Like again, I don't see a run coming, but I could see it for a round maybe. You just need to get 4 good games. That's
I
it.
mean, hey, you look at the Florida Panthers last
So-
year, right?
Yeah.
They went through a coaching change at the beginning of the year with Paul Maurice coming in the offseason. They had a ton of injuries at the beginning of the year. You know, people forget they won the President's Trophy the year before, and they added Matthew Tkachuk. So people were saying, oh, well, they just got in. Yeah, they're still a great team, and they got in.
The Oilers do not have a Bobrovsky, though, sitting as the backup.
No.
That's the big difference. The
No.
guy that was one of the best when he was in Columbus. You know, like they don't have a Bobrovsky, so it's a
He
little bit
stole that
different there.
series against the Bruins.
He was unbelievable.
You know, another team I kind of like is Winnipeg. Like they got a great goaltender. That Dubois trade,
Yep.
they got some really nice depth.
Iafallo and it was not what's the other kid they got? But Iafallo's fantastic. He's a guy that fits up and down their lineup.
Yeah.
My issue with the Jets, I have a buddy who's a big Jets fan, and he just talks about their depth on D. He likes some of their D prospects, but you know they play a guy like Dylan Stanley who makes lots of mistakes. Dylan DeMello, Brendan Dillon. If they could go out and get a defenseman or 2, look out. Because
And they can probably do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've been saying it for the last few years. If Kevin Cheveldayoff can go out and get a defenseman or 2 and fix that blue line, they can go on a run. But he's got to be one of the most, I don't know if you want to call him patient GMs, but a guy who sits on his hands. He does not make a lot of moves. But if they go out and make a couple moves on their blue line,
I'll say this about the Jets. Like, we all thought, why is Scheifele and Hellebuck re-signing? Like, what are you doing? This is a team that's going to take a while, and what they're doing is, I don't think most expected going into this season.
Yeah.
I don't think we thought that they'd be sitting in a playoff spot and looking pretty good this year. It's,
I like that trade that they
It's-
made with
it worked
Dubois.
out. I think both teams. That was a good trade for both. I think the Kings got a player there.
Dubois
But-
isn't lighting it up for Los Angeles.
Yeah.
He's part of it for sure, but he's not the reason that they're doing well.
But it's
but he can be
Good
a guy
piece.
that when he's
Yeah.
on,
when he gets going, that could really help that team. And then obviously the Jets, they got a lot out of it. This is
they got
the
Velarde as well.
Yeah, this is the EST Hangout presented by Mott's Clamato, Caesar Matt Iwanyk, Marie McCourt, Jason Hills with us here on Edmonton Sports Talk, edmontonsportstalk.com. I do like the pickled bean and the extra spicy, the Mott's Clamato Caesar. I always just got to say that. Original is great. It's awesome. I prefer the other 2. They're available in both original and variety 12 packs. Let's get into movers and shakers, which is brought to you by Marco and Mike Realty One Group Insider. Buying or selling a home, give Marco and Mike the old PTO contract. Let them prove to you why they are the right guys for the job. MarcoandMike.com for more information. I want to transition sports to golf actually here quickly with you being here, Murray. There is big news in the golf world when it comes to golf balls and the changes that they're going to roll back golf balls and stuff across the board, not just pros, but even amateur golf balls. I think it's by 2030 or something. Is this something average golfers are going to notice? Do you know?
Absolutely.
Is it?
Yeah. I thought you were going to go live tour with John
could get there
Rahm,
to-
Patrick Cantlay, and
Is Cantlay going too?
And Shifley. That's what's out there.
I heard of Rom like $400 and some million to go there.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But anyways, okay.
No, the golf ball is the one I'm
thing,
intrigued by first.
I think it's absolutely ludicrous
Yeah.
what they're trying to do. Every the tour guys, like, oh, come on. We as fans want to watch them hit the ball far and whatnot. The whole thing of rolling the golf ball back, and the manufacturers don't want to have to make a ball for PGA tours and a ball for everyone else because that's not a profitable way for them to do business. But man, when you play golf,
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Do you want to hit the ball shorter? Is it going to make the game more fun for you and make you enjoy it more? No.
As long as it's straighter, but no.
Well, okay, is that going to be the thing? But man, what makes golf a special sport is it's fun and we want to hit the ball far.
Yeah.
And golf is hard.
It is.
It's not easy. Why do you want to make it more difficult? And so what they're saying is it be approximately like 8 to 10% less. So if you hit the ball with your driver 250 yards, you're going to lose 20 to 25 yards. Ouch. That's insane.
Here's what you say: we want to watch the pros hit it far. I'm one that doesn't. I like to see them challenged. I don't like, because these golf courses aren't designed for them hitting the ball 350 yards or whatever it is, right? So they're getting past all the trouble, and it's just too easy for them.
Not many of them hit the ball that far.
Well, the best ones do.
Yeah,
well, the
longest-
leaders will.
the longest
And then
hitters,
I'm
yeah.
watching a tournament, and these leaders are running away with it because they're hitting past all the bunkers and everything, and they just got a nice layup onto the green, and they're going from there. That I just don't know how we combat that as a golf courses, because you can only go so far back. So that's where I'm actually okay with it.
So
I don't think it's good though for the average golfer to have to, if I'm hitting 250, that's really good. But now I'm only going to hit 220. It makes it a lot more tougher, which isn't, as you say, it's supposed to be fun, and making it harder is not going to be good.
It makes no sense. And this is what I actually feel is going to happen. Is it's going to, whatever, 20, 30 year is what the rumor is. Okay, that's 6 years from now. I think in that 6 years, some common sense is going to prevail and it won't happen. That's what I think.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, as a average regular Joe kind of golfer, I mean, I usually shoot in the 90s typically. I don't get to golf as much as I do. If I'm going out there and hitting a ball 25 yards less, I mean, I have a hard enough time on some courses keeping it straight as it is. That's going to be frustrating. But I do love the challenge of golf in that sense.
It shouldn't be easy, right?
No.
There is a challenge, and we love that challenge, but we also don't need to make it harder. I guess would golf courses consider, if this does ultimately prevail, we do get these new golf balls in 2030, would you move tee boxes up a little bit to combat this a little bit for the rec golfer?
All golfers have their selection of tees, right? Most golfers are playing too far back.
Yes.
True.
So
That's why, would you guys consider trying to force
100%.
the decision on people by moving their tees up a little bit?
I
Or
wouldn't say that, but I think people might recognize, I should move up a tee box so I'm enjoying myself more. That I could see that happening if it actually goes through.
When I was younger, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm always going to play from the tips. Right now, as I've gotten older, I'm like, I'll just play from the whites. I'm good.
Yeah.
Or if there's ones that are multiple, it's like, okay, here's the quote unquote ladies tees,
Forward tees.
the forward tees.
outside of the juniors, how many? You guys have 4? Like taking the yellows away?
Yeah, we have
Is it 4?
four tee
Yeah.
boxes, and like those forward tees. Sure, they used to be known as the women's tees. Seniors are playing those tees now.
Yeah.
I mean, as like my father-in-law is a big golfer, but he's recognized that as he's aging, he's like, I don't even remember how old he is, but like right around close to 80.
Yeah.
And he doesn't hit the ball very far anymore.
Yeah.
So he's playing the forward tees now, and the game's more. It's
more
more
enjoyable.
enjoyable for him. So Yeah, it's people need to recognize that. And so if this is forced on us, if we want to enjoy the game to the same degree, we might just have to move up a tee box.
I think there's, those people's mindsets, I'm always, I'm going to play from the, like, I don't know. Like I said earlier, like as I've gotten older, I'm like, I don't need to play from the tips. Like, there's no reason.
I hardly play from the tips anymore.
Like, to me, it's pro. Like, why make it harder? The golf is already hard enough as it is. Like, I'll play from the tees that I want to play from, whatever they are.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about your father-in-law. Like, I have a good friend of mine, and he's old enough to be my dad, actually. But him and I have golfed for years and years together. And him and I would, 10, 15 years ago, let's play from the tips. Well, now he's like, no. Let's just play from these ones.
It's not fun.
And and his brother-in-law, like, who's up there in age, when we golf with him, this is a guy who's in his 80s, and he'll play from the forward tees. He only hits it about maybe 180, 200 yards, but it's dead straight every time. And I'm like, hey, if I'm that age, I want to be able to hit it dead straight.
Well, but when you think about it, okay, so you normally shoot in the 90s, but if one day you have a bad day and you shoot 110... Was that fun? Like, you're frustrated, you're angry.
I'd be frustrated. And I have those days,
Right.
especially because I don't golf as much anymore as I used to.
Right, but then you have a good day and you shoot 86. You're like, yes, I had so much fun. I love this, right?
Yeah.
So, man, people want to enjoy the game. They want to play well, so don't make it harder.
Yeah.
But now for the pros, though, like, do you not feel that because this is RNA and PGA America that are coming with this, I think? Do you not feel that they need to do something to make it a little more challenging for these golfers? For the pros, not us.
What I would just say is where the balls are at now, stop.
Yeah.
Don't make them go any further, because the companies, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to keep working on the golf ball to make it go further. Just say enough. Where it's at now, that's it. Don't make them go any further than they are now. What
has been the biggest reason for, because like people are hitting it further and further and further. Is it the ball or is it the driver or is it both?
Both.
Is it both?
Absolutely. But, go back to your comment. I'm going to take it to a different direction for a second.
Sure.
You said you don't like to see the best players in the world hit it far because, they hit it past the trouble or whatever. Well, Connor McDavid skates too fast? Do you want to make him wear a different skate or something so he's not faster than everybody else?
But he still beats, like, he's still going up against NHL defensemen. He's still got to beat those NHL defensemen.
Right.
So when he's doing something special and he's doing around we haven't changed the nets for him. We haven't changed goalie pads for him. Like, we're not shrinking. We're not going back to the 80s in terms of the equipment of the goalies. So, like, I wouldn't want to see that with Connor. I wouldn't want to see the net get bigger. I don't want to see in the NBA the net get bigger so that they have a better shot. Steph makes it even easier to hit his 3 points.
Right.
The game is still somewhat the game. So, no, that's where I would say it's a little different. Where golf, it's
a game.
The drivers changed in the sense, and, like, the playing field, though, has not changed with the equipment.
Yeah.
And now they could do things that aren't there for what the architect designed back in 1920.
Right.
Where I want to see is changes to the course. I like watching. One of my favorite majors of the year is watching the Open, because you get some funky weather. You get them, hitting out of massive deep bunkers if they get in the bunker or the fescue. Or I remember one of the very first majors. I started watching golf when I was probably 10 years old on TV, but one of my most memorable majors I ever watched was the British Open in the late 90s with.
You thinking John Van de Velde?
Yes. And I was sitting at home.
12 on the 18th hole.
And I was sitting at home, and I was just glued to the TV because I just couldn't believe, here he is.
100%.
But I like watching those type of challenges.
Sure. So when you talk changes to the courses, you like to see the courses made harder?
I know they change the pin placements throughout the course of the tournament, and they try to get tougher as, but
sometimes,
I think, especially for the major tournaments, like, make the changes to the course that are going to make it challenging. So if you have a guy who can drive at 350 yards, he's not just going over all the trouble.
Well, he still has to hit it straight. If he's going over all the trouble, John Van de Velde made a 12. I mean, golfers. I remember when. I don't pay attention hardly to the Live Tour. DeChambeau. Boy, he hits the ball so far, but man, he doesn't know where it's going. He hits it out of bounds all the time and stuff like that. So, yeah, if a guy bombs it over all these trees and he's 350 yards out in the middle of the fairway, it's like, say good shot. Like, wow, that's one of the best players in the world. It just did something absolutely spectacular.
True. That's true. Yeah. I do see that.
But
side
if he's
of it.
doing it every round, multiple times around, it kind of, you're going, oh.
That's the part. Like,
he's done it again. I'm not seeing him challenged. I'm not seeing him. When you're getting golf from within 50 yards every time or whatever, it's like, life's easy.
Like I can remember just watching a lot of majors, and you'd see like the major winner would be like 7 under, 8 under.
Yeah, I love the U.S. Opens where it's even. I agree.
Even.
I like the challenges.
I don't like seeing a major tournament where you've got 10, 12, 15 golfers that are
20 under par.
20
I
under
don't
par,
like the 20
14 under par.
It's one of the reasons I do love the U.S. Open is that the golfers hate it and they get really challenged.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we've seen winning scores be over.
Yeah.
And I also don't want that personally. Like, I don't want to see a +1 win.
Once in a while.
I don't mind like the -1, 2. You know, just a couple. But I like watching a tournament where birdies are hard to come by.
Yeah.
And when you go get that one birdie, it's a big deal because they're not easy to go get. Whereas other courses, it seems like, okay, well, it's not easy to go get the eagle, but we're just seeing birdies all over the place.
Right.
I don't want to see it where you see a guy with a 3-shot lead going into the final round and he's going to win because
like golf is hard, guys. Like
It is.
Birdies aren't that easy to come by, and like these are the best players in the world at what they're doing. So, man, just tip your hat. Good for you.
I do. They do something that I wish I could do 3/4 of what they do, but it's also, I like to see them challenged a bit.
Yeah.
And the courses I don't think we could change the courses that much to keep up with the equipment changes that we've seen over the years.
Sure.
And so I understand why the PGA American and RNA are finding ways to try to bring things back. I'm not sold though. Like, it does suck that it's now impacting regular golfers, and I kind of really wish that it was a mix of manufacturers who were able to find a way. Now I understand why they're not, but a mix of, here's like aluminum bats versus wooden bats in baseball. Like, here's the balls for regular golfers. We can go into the pro shop at the ranch and buy our golf balls, but the pros, they ain't touching those balls on the golf course.
It's like if you accidentally grab a range ball in your
your score would be different.
I agree with you though, Murray. I think if they are doing a ton of technology changes when it comes to the different clubs they use and the drivers and that kind of thing. If they stop with the technology of making a ball,
just stop. Don't go any further.
There's no.
So one thing with courses, all this technology is changing for the regular golfers too, right? And so not everyone spends the money to get it, but it's there if you want. But even with that, for the regular golfer at the ranch over the last number of years, I've spent a boatload of money out there to make and time and effort on our staff to make the course way easier. The ranch is so much easier to play now than it was 10 years ago with so many of the changes that we've made, because you want that 86. You don't want that 110 because and if you get that 86 at the ranch, you're going to be, oh, I love the ranch. If you get that 110, you're going to be, oh, I hate this place. Yep. And so
there's literally Edmonton has so many courses to choose from.
Absolutely,
around the city. And there are courses that I don't want to play because I've gone there and had a horrible experience because I've shot 125.
So that was the course's fault.
Honestly, no.
And
I guess I'm
and
different
it's
on
all
that.
on me. You know what I mean? But I can see why you do that.
Right.
Because you want business. You want people to go
enjoy
there. And you want people of all ages to be able to go and enjoy it.
Exactly. And so I tell people, because some of these changes are a big part of it, I tell people all the time, sometimes it's easier to win the Lotto 649 than getting a tee time of the ranch because we're so busy. But the other piece I want to say to you talk about hitting the ball straighter. So I can't say a lot because it's getting released in January, and I guess I don't fully know all the details of it myself, but TaylorMade is coming out with a new driver. If you Google it, you can see some pictures of it.
Spoilers out there, leaks.
Yeah, and the driver still has everything in it that hits the ball as far as it ever has, but there's some different technology in it that when you hit it, the face doesn't turn as much.
Wow.
So you hit it straighter. So because the face doesn't turn as much on the off-center hits, where that slice can go crazy, because it doesn't turn as much, it won't go as crazy.
Wow.
So that's some technology coming out in the new TaylorMade driver.
I've never done it, but have you ever seen the lip balm on a driver?
Lip balm?
If you take lip balm and put it all over your driver, it hits it straight.
Is that real?
It apparently it is a thing that people will now. It's like it's a cheating thing. I've never actually tried it, but there's people that do it, and they actually it hits straighter. For some reason, it doesn't have that. It takes away some of the spin or something.
Wow,
you can hit it straighter.
I've never even heard that.
And so if you ever, okay, then I'm glad that people are doing that. It's not really fully known, but there's a way to. That's the cheating way of doing it. But
illegal.
the TaylorMade would be. Oh yes, 100%.
Are you going to go test that theory?
Well,
I mean, you hit it straight as it is, right?
Most of the time. I'm sponsored or whatever by TaylorMade, so I get we'll start selling lip balm in the pro shop and maybe help people out hit the ball straighter. But yeah, so I get their new equipment every year, custom fit to me and stuff like that. So I'm spoiled by TaylorMade and love their equipment and their ball. I mean, it's fantastic.
Intrigued by that, actually, that driver.
Yeah, we do have the TaylorMade Performance Center of the ranch, so you can come and try them out.
I can't next year.
Oh, you're still.
I got booked in for surgery now.
That's right. When is
later
the big
this month?
day?
Later this month.
Shoulder
labrum surgery. So December 22 now. So I will be. I won't be swinging that club next year much. But the year after, 2025,
absolutely.
I'm going to redo my game, rebuild it all. Maybe new clubs, everything in 2025.
Well,
there you go.
But
new shoulder, new me, new golf, all that.
It's a good thing that you make your living with your mouth and not your shoulder, though. So
but it's my right. That's going to be weird. I do a lot with the right, so that's going to be. We'll see how that all plays out. But I'm actually very intrigued to just. I have a couple buddies that are huge into like all the equipment of golf, and I think they're good with their drivers, but I guarantee they'll try to grab that driver to give it a try, and I'll be intrigued to hear their reviews of how it plays out, because like that's the bit. Like, is that not one of the biggest things for golfers is that they just slice their driver, and when you go to bounds, there's a shot right there that you're just wasting, and it happens over and over and over. That if you have that club that ultimately does the best to eliminate that as best as you can, because you'll never have a club that will fully eliminate it.
But
I don't think. But
these suits that want to make golf no fun for everybody, you're going to say, oh no, we can't have that because it's going to make golf too easy for people to enjoy a little more. I don't know.
Don't you find golfers, it's like the one club in their bag is always the most important to them is their driver?
Absolutely. And so you take away the par threes, say there's four par threes, so it's maximum 14 times you're going to use it. How many times around do you use your putter? A lot more than 14.
Yeah.
On really bad days.
I remember when I was younger, I was like, I got to every year I wanted to get a new driver. I'm like, maybe I just got to focus on another area of my game. So that's why, my short game is always up and down, but it's...
because it's not fun to practice chipping and putting, is it? I mean, everyone goes to the driving range, and it's not good for their bodies. They go to the driving range, and the first club they pull out the driver and start ripping at it. I'm like,
you work your way up, don't you?
I've learned over the years when I go to the driving range never to pull out the driver first.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you one of the funny story. One of my longest drives I've ever had was actually out on your course, and I had no warm up, nothing. I pulled in. I hate being late.
Yeah.
And I was running super
Trunk
late.
Slammer, yeah.
And I grabbed my clubs. I ran to the first tee. My two buddies were waiting for me. I'd never golfed your course before. I put my tee out, and I had one of my best drives I've ever had on your first
hole. Wow, good for you.
Not my best one, but one of my best.
Nice.
And it was no warm up, nothing. Ice cold.
I
just went and swung
at the ranch.
Didn't even think of it.
One is a great way to start.
It's a great hole. I love that.
And 10 is just a fun way for the turn and just to watch it from the clubhouse and all that. Wow. It's actually that spot is just wonderful.
Just that view is unbelievable. When I first came to the ranch, now like 18 years ago, I was the head pro manager of a golf course south of Calgary. And I left in the middle of winter, didn't really have the opportunity to say goodbye to the members or anything like that. So some members were up here, and they bumped into me, and they said, well, geez, why did you leave Nanton? And I said, well, are you going to be in Edmonton like tomorrow? And then, well, yeah. I said, come out to the ranch tomorrow. I'll buy you breakfast and show you around. I met them out front when they were walking up. And as they were walking up, they're seeing 110. And they go, we've already seen enough. We know why you're here.
It is.
It's beautiful.
And the drive in. I mean, just that drive in.
Under the trees and all that.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, we've rented that. There's signs up there now that we call it Red Wheel Lane now, kind of piggybacking off of Magnolia Lane. But Red Wheel, before it was the ranch, it was a ranch called the Flying Red Wheel Ranch. So that's why we call it Red Wheel Lane, kind of paying some homage to the history of the property.
Nice.
So golf balls, new ones apparently 2030. So we got some time. So stock up, I guess, if you will. Stock up on those golf balls over the next 6-7 years or so. That was Movers and Shakers, brought to you on Marco and Mike Realty. Realty One Group Insider. Visit marcoandmike.com for more information on the duo there. Remember McCourt, Jason Hills, Matt Iwanyk with you on the EST Angle, presented by Mott's Clamato Caesar. I haven't had you on since the news came out. Obviously, we haven't had you on since this news came out, but the Edmonton Elks announcing that they are reviewing the ownership structure of this team, which is likely meaning that we will eventually go see private ownership of the Elks. Is it time that that's the right move? Who wants to start with that one? You're a long time season ticket holder. You've covered this team.
I think there's a lot of benefits to it. But they need to get the right people. Whether it's a group of people or one person, they need to get the right person if they go that route. You've seen how it's helped BC, for example.
Yeah.
I think it is time, because I think, the board has done a ton of work over the years. But, I've questioned some of their moves and their reasons for it over the last few years, just with some of their things that they've done. Nothing to do with the name. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. I have no issue with the name change, but I think if they get the right owner or a group of owners, I think it's not a bad idea. But give it time. I wouldn't rush into it, and that's my thought.
Yeah. So this is when it got announced. I mean, this has been in the works for a while. Like I was kind of snooping around the president's job a little bit to see if I might be potentially interested in going down that road for myself, and so I have relationships with a lot of the right people in the organization and in the town, and I was basically told that I don't want that job right now because it's not going to be a community-owned team for very much longer. So so I know that there's been meetings with people have been snooping around trying with this for a little bit of time now, and some of the people that I know and tell me some information, like they say that it has to happen to get the Elks on the same playing field as some of the other organizations, because other organizations that have private owners, there's a salary cap and things like that. There's deals that I think everyone kind of knows that happens. Well, we're going to pay you this amount of money, but your wife is going to get a job in my company for $100,000 to she's not going to work, but that's just the way
There's
that
a side deal.
Right.
There's a lot of talk in like Winnipeg, like Adam Bighill has this great job that the Bombers have helped him.
Right. And so
supposedly
the Winnipeg system is a little different than the Edmonton system. And so Edmonton is not able to do anything like that because the books have to be
they're open.
Spotless. Right. And so they're at a competitive disadvantage against other organizations for that reason. So, I mean, for people to know and understand that stuff like that goes on, it's like, oh man, that's. But
the team used to do that.
Yeah,
back in the '90s and stuff, like under Hugh Campbell and stuff.
Yeah, like Ron Goldie, McClendon. Sell tickets and
absolutely. And then there was like the Trappers, a bunch of former players and members were all of a sudden part of the Trappers organization in some way, shape, or form. Did they do anything? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But the organization was known in the past for doing that and finding ways around
Right.
the books. But now things have changed.
Yeah,
obviously,
supposedly they're not able to do that. So for those types of reasons and financial reasons, like they had so much money, and like COVID did a big number on the league as a whole, right? And
Rick Lawler came out and said when they announced the ownership structure review that they have money for this year. Basically, that's it.
Yeah.
They might not, if they don't find the right solution to this or find some cash injection into this franchise, they
about
could
get some
struggle
butts
for
in the seats, though?
2025,
That'll
right?
And here's one of the thoughts, a change that they made, and they've closed the upper bowl. And I understand the reasoning why they're doing it. But if I'm a longtime season ticket holder and I was in an upper bowl, I'd feel slighted in the sense that, from what I've heard from certain people is they were offering lower bowl seats for the people in the upper bowl, but it was in the end zones. Why would I want to give up my 55-yard line seat, 5 rows up, where I've sat for the last 20 years, to go sit in the end zone?
Who did we have on the Hangout? It's going to bother me that I remember their name.
To me,
Well, would it not make sense to keep, and maybe they can't for concessions and things, I'm not sure, but keep a couple of sections in the 50 to 55 yard line area
Of the upper bowl?
And the upper bowl.
The problem is now that, okay, people are allowed up there, what's stopping people then from spreading out across the sections and then more people just like, you want to know something? I'm just going to go sit up there. I'm going to buy a ticket and I'm just going to go sit up there. And then we have the same problem. Like, you need to outright tell people you can't go in the upper bowl to force people staying down in the bottom. But we had one person, Andrew Hoskins. Andrew from the Turf District. He was on Friday, and he brought up the point of like, I guess the one thing is go try it and see, because there was a shorter period maybe, and see if you like it or don't for some people, I guess. Because it's a difficult thing. Like, Gazole, I think, has thrown it out there. I think there's 1,500 season ticket accounts from the upper bowl that account for about 3,000 season tickets. But this is something that has been discussed for a long time about closing the upper bowl, and they have fought against it, and the team has kept it open. But there does come a point where this franchise has 31,000, 33,000 seats in the lower bowl and go, this is what we need to fill. And I guess they're at a point where if they lose a couple of those accounts, they're willing to do that because it's already a little dire, and they're trying to now just build that lower bowl up.
I just think
there's no better time, I think, to do that than right now.
I just think for the long time customers, I feel for them.
100%.
If I was a season ticket holder for 2 or 3 years and I was sitting in whatever, and they said, "Hey, can you move down?"
But
I probably wouldn't have an issue with it.
The flip side to that, though, is if I'm a long-time season ticket holder up there, I love this team, and if this team is saying we really need to do this for the future of this franchise, that we cannot be on the field in 2025, we might be out of money. Then you kind of have to, you go, okay, maybe I can't be fully selfish. It's only just about me. It is about this future of this franchise, and it's up to me to either not show up anymore, which is your right. You don't want to be sitting in the end zone, sit at home and watch them, or go get those end zone seats, or upgrade and pay a little bit more. Like I know that sounds awful to say, like, to those longtime fans, but this franchise, the future of it is at stake here. So we could
not really, but
if they don't have money for 2025, if they can't, if they can only field 2024 and they don't have a team for 2025 because they don't have the money for it.
Well, the other thing though, I don't know how the money works on season tickets or anything like that, but maybe for some families, that's all they can afford is seats up there, and if I have to move down there, it's obviously going to cost more money, and maybe I can't afford it.
Well, the end zone that's where they'd be, I think, similar pricing.
Okay.
So there is similar pricing down there, but it's not the same sight line.
Right.
Which obviously I know that's going to hurt some of those people.
For sure.
But the franchise has to now do what's best for the future of this organization and not what's best for 1,500 accounts.
Can they afford to tick off any more customers at all? I mean, sure, we don't need to go down the name change road, but I mean, that ticked off a lot of people.
There's a lot of
things
that the losing has not helped, right?
Of course.
Like, since 2006, the first year they missed the playoffs in 35 years, they've hosted, 3-4 playoff games?
Yeah, So, but
in
if the
that time.
team starts winning, they're going to need some space in that upper bowl, I think, because I feel if they start winning again, 40,000 a game is pretty realistic.
But to help build that is you could try to create a supply and demand and go, we only got 31,000 seats. If you're not one of the 31,000, you can't get into the Commonwealth today. And the atmosphere now also got built. Because one thing lacking for Commonwealth is a strong atmosphere and stuff because everyone is so spread out.
True. My issue though is now they're two. Like you look at last year, I didn't go to any games. My schedule didn't really permit for it. But when I watched the games on TV, I mean, there were some nights, some games where I saw there might have been maybe 10,000 people in there, if that. Even 10,000 people in a lower, like if you're just filling the lower bowl.
But there are also games that, like the Calgary rematch, Labor Day rematch, had over 30.
Yeah.
And it felt great. And now imagine that Labor Day rematch where it's the whole lower bowl that's filled. And the atmosphere that could be created and how great that could feel.
Yeah.
How many of those tickets were...
That game that was sold because Victor Cui was the one that papered the city with tickets. And he was gone by then. And that was immediately stopped by Rick Lollisher. He came in and he stopped the papering of the city for the most part. Like staff members had like 50 tickets they could give away each game. Each staff member had 50 that they give away type thing. Like that's where Victor Cui was. So when you look at, there was a BC game, I think, when they got shut out. It was announced a really good crowd. And it was a decent crowd that showed up.
But it wasn't.
But it wasn't what they announced.
No, of course not.
At all. But the Calgary game, the rematch, absolutely was very much. It was at 31,000, I think they announced. I'm sure there was 28, 29 in the stadium for that game. And because it was loud, it was energetic. They were winning at the time, or they'd won a bunch of recent games. Trey Ford was exciting.
Yeah.
They had played a great game in Calgary, unfortunately lost on Labor Day. That there was a good atmosphere. Now, there were people in the upper bowl. Now, I just imagine what if everyone was just straight up in the lower bowl and how great that could have felt. And then if you're somebody that's maybe on the outside that didn't get to the game, you're going, well, look how great that looks. I need to be there. Well, now it's not you can get tickets day of. You got to pre-plan to get your tickets, which now might create a little bit of a demand for the franchise. Maybe.
I think
that's what I think their hope
Time's
is.
going to tell for
100%.
sure. Yeah.
Winning cures everything.
100%.
Winning like a while. Like it's not 1 year. Like you've got to be good for a number of seasons in a row.
Yep.
Because they won in 15.
We're due. Holy, there's only 9 teams in the league. We can't suck forever.
Yeah, it's
my goodness. I mean, I've been a diehard Eskimo Elks fan since I was knee high to a grasshopper, and my goodness, it sucks that they're struggling as they are on the field. But Trey Ford does bring a lot of excitement, and I'm pretty optimistic that there's some playoffs in our future next year.
I feel the same way. I think the last 2 years under Chris Jones, he's shuffled a ton of guys in and out.
2 years ago, it was 100 players.
Yeah,
it was 100 players.
100
players.
Yeah. Like, imagine the airplane ticket bills just with all those players. But I think that's going to change this year. I don't think you're going to see so many players. I mean, Jones has no issue bringing guys in to take a look and then shipping them out the next week if he doesn't want that. Like, he's always been that way. But I think he has a core now that he can build around.
It was a young team last year for sure.
Very young.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's a lot that he needs to look at in free agency. A lot of this team is signed.
Yeah.
There's not they don't have a massive list like other teams. I think they actually have the smallest free agent list of all
nothing
9 clubs.
and nothing like that's like, oh, we really need to get this. Like,
they need to go fix the O-line.
Yes.
That's the spot that they need to go fix. Now, do they have the money to do that? I don't know. But they might have to move a couple bodies out to get the money because they need to fix the O-line. But beyond that, I think for the most part, as long as their linebackers stay healthy, they've got a good linebacking core. Secondary is where they were really young. You hope that next year the development comes, and now all of a sudden we're going to see that Chris Jones defense that we've all expected since he came back to Edmonton that we would eventually see. But you have a quarterback, you have some receivers, you have a running back. Kicker's the other thing.
2 running backs they got.
Yeah, a kicker would be the other thing is you would need.
Faithful did pretty well, actually.
Do you trust him for game-winning kick in November?
I don't know. I mean,
Can you always trust kickers though?
I had a lot of trust in Sean White. I had a lot of trust in Sean Fleming.
Yeah.
I would have had trust in Sergio Castillo.
Yeah.
As much as Dean Faithful's a great dude.
I'm more
I'm not
generalizing
sure.
in the sense of,
I don't feel comfortable at all with Dean Faithful.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel
he hasn't.
I'm not he had the big kick against Calgary, yes, but he also had a lot of misses throughout the seasons in moments where you really needed a kick.
Yeah.
I think, we'll see how much growth there is, I think, to his game coming up. I mean, you got to remember that was his first year.
He's also 38.
True.
Yeah.
I have a kickers.
Well, kickers can kick forever. I mean,
Yeah.
Sean White's not young. Sergio's not young.
Remember Bob Cameron back in the day punting?
Well, but he's not Bob Cameron.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, guys can play.
Sean White is 38.
Yeah.
But he'd been doing this for a long time. It's...
And then 38, he was West nominee for Canadian of the Year at 38. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, Sean White's been one of the best kickers in the game the last
easily.
15 years.
Yeah.
But I guess that is the benefit for the Elks, is that there's not a lot of spots you're looking at like this needs to improve. But next year, like playoffs in the future, there has to be. Next year, like it has to be for Chris Jones. If they don't make the playoffs next year, the change has to come again, right? Like it's you're at that point. You can't just be like, maybe next year. They can't get off to like an 0-4 or 0-5 start. You can't have that like you did this year, where it was ultimately 0-9 in the end. But you can't get off to. You can maybe lose game 1, but you better be winning game 2 then.
I think
Can't lose game 1 either. Remember last year's game, because we had some optimism going into the season this year.
Yep.
And then
I'm intrigued what would have happened.
I think their biggest mistake last year was
game.
If they win that, I don't know if
What happened?
if they go 1-8 in the next, the stretch. I think mentally that crushed them
Yes.
to start the year.
I agree.
And their season got derailed in game 1.
that, and I think not moving off of two things. One, not giving the opportunity to Trey Ford. I know he didn't have the best camp, but he is your best quarterback. Not going to him sooner. And also Stephen McAdoo.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, you saw the change as soon as they got him. I was around the organization a lot when he was part of Chris Jones' staff in 2014 and 2015, and I mean, he's very tight with Coach Jones, and but even then, you watch the way he ran that offense. It was very vanilla. There was nothing. It was very meat and potatoes, very straightforward. There was nothing.
Well, it's funny you say that, because in 15, I felt the offense in the second half of the season got really better and really good, and they were actually putting up points. And then I heard this year from a member of that team saying that was because Mike Riley was changing the plays at the line. That he kept calling, that's one of the reasons that you saw that offense in 15 really start picking it up, and as they got into the playoffs were having major success, is partly because Riley was making some of those calls himself.
Knowing Mike the way I do, that doesn't surprise me, honestly.
Yeah.
Because that was the thing I always gave McAdoo credit for. It's like at least that second half of 15, there was something there. Like, and maybe as an OC, that's what I always pinpointed on.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it's never been good. Whether it be in Toronto or whether in Saskatchewan, whether here in Edmonton, it hasn't been there. And I always pointed that one. Then it was just hearing that. Well, part of that is because of Riley changing plays. You're like, that actually kind of makes a lot of sense.
But that team had a lot of great players, and that team was really tight.
Yes, led by a great leader in Riley,
Yes.
because he didn't just lead for the offense. What he did really motivated the defense, you could tell.
Yeah.
That they went out there to play for Riley, even though
Absolutely.
Riley's not on the field with them at the exact same time.
Yeah.
I was part of that organization in 2013 and 14, and I remember having a conversation with Ed Hervey one night. We were leaving the office, and he said to me, this was during the struggles in 2013, and he said to me, I don't want to build this team to win one Grey Cup. I want to build it to win multiple Grey Cups. And you saw it in 2014 with the turnaround with Coach Jones.
They might have won the Grey Cup if he doesn't get hurt.
If he doesn't get hurt,
they might be Calgary.
I totally, going into that game, I knew obviously with Mike's injury, it was going to be tough. And we played Calgary so tough. They had the team's number that whole season. But you just felt like if he can just, and he gutted it out. Like afterwards in the locker room, I mean, you just saw he was a warrior, like an absolute warrior, and you saw the way the team rallied behind him. I truly feel had he not been injured, they could have won that. They could have won that year.
They could have been back-to-back champs potentially, but that injury late just crushed them.
Yeah, Mike was one of those guys that just, when he spoke in the locker room, everybody just didn't matter what they were doing, stopped, turned around, and listened. Like he was that voice. Like he was incredible. Like in my time being around him, like he was just incredible to be around. He's everyone talks about Ricky Ray, and I mean I love Ricky Ray.
Ricky was the best.
Ricky was the best. But for Mike Riley during his time here, I mean what he did for the organization on and off the field, incredible.
Yeah, I was great friends with Mike when he was here. Played a lot of golf with him and hung out with him a ton. And he is just so genuine.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable guy. And, we played a lot of golf, and I'm a fan, but we're buddies, right?
Yeah.
And but I'm still a fan. You don't act like a fan with them, obviously. But, when we played golf together, he would bring a football with him out on the course. And then when we had weights on a tee box to wait for the group in front of us to go, I would go out and run patterns and Mike would throw the football to me. And I'm like hanging out playing golf with a buddy. But inside I'm like, oh my God, I'm playing catch with Mike freaking Riley right now. And how cool is this? And, it's like just a special person.
Yeah. He when he came here, I was, part of the organization when his first year when he came here, and he sunk himself in the community. Mm-hmm. He wanted to do so much, and people just gravitated towards him.
He just has that personality. Like it's easy to gravitate towards him, and you just wanted to hear him talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'll tell you another quick story. We go to On the Rock sometimes, Mike and I, and his wife was not here, and he's so cognizant of not being put in a bad position. So girls would always come up and talk to him, and he would always move, like they'd go to sit beside him, he would move him to the other side of me so the girls wouldn't be, he'd talk with them and whatnot, but he didn't want to put himself in a position where people might take a picture, put it on social media that, just huge respect, just thinks about things that, maybe most people wouldn't think of. But
that's that just proves that overall with Michael Riley, how much a leader can carry a team.
Yeah.
And that's what you kind of hope Trey Ford is a great dude, very nice. He doesn't have that warrior personality, I think, but he can be exciting.
Yes.
And he's going to go do some great things.
He's going to do the things on the field.
It's going to be he doesn't seem, I don't know, like that raw guy in the locker room. He's going to pipe. He's more of the Ricky Ray, I would think.
Yeah.
A little more timid with the voice and all of that, but he's going to lead on the field in with his play. And the good part of Trey Ford is if he ultimately does become the quarterback that we think he's going to be, he's so young. Yeah. That you could have him for a decade plus
absolutely.
here. He's not going to the NFL.
No.
And what could that do for a franchise that could come back and then have this guy lead you for another 10 years or something, and you be competitive like what happened in Calgary with Bo Levi Mitchell? Could that happen here in Edmonton with Trey Ford? Just consistent contenders at the top, and this guy just being unreal. Like there was a Kyler Murray run recently with the Cards. And I saw a video where somebody put it next to Trey Ford's run in Calgary. Trey Ford's was more impressive. He ran a little more than Kyler Murray did. Yeah. And the U.S. just loving what Kyler Murray did in this great thing. But you compare the two. They're very similar patterns and with where they ran. But you look at it and go, which one was better? Which one was a little more impressive? You said like Trey Ford's was. Just in terms of speed and things. And it was unreal.
That was unreal.
And yeah, you'd hope he'd only get better and just work on the passing a little bit more. And that guy is going to be a strong quarterback in this league. And we've talked about this on the show many times before.
Exciting.
You have to lock this guy up.
Yep.
You have to lock him down.
And make him the face of the franchise.
You give him that little extra contract that generally we don't see in the CFL because you need him around this franchise.
Maybe we can talk to the powers that be there, talk to Chris Jones and he can be an employee of Edmonton Sports Talk and slide him some extra money. Fans can chip in and give him some extra money.
I would love to have Trey Ford around just even for a little bit a week, just to talk with him a little bit, and then just if that's how we have to help the Edmonton Elks, I'll say this: EST's ready to jump in on that one.
There you go.
Well, go fund me that
Go
one.
fund me that for Trey Ford to get some extra money on the side
To stay here.
Pay,
Just be-
payroll from EST.
He'll be our receptionist.
Yeah.
One day a week for like an hour.
during the hangout. Yeah.
He'll just happen to pop in for that hour too. Yeah,
exactly.
We'll have him, but he was great. We had him on the Hangout this year, and him and Gavin Cobb, and just you want him in the city.
Yeah, he's a genuine,
you want him to be the face of the
great person
franchise
too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
just
so
the
well
nicest
spoken.
dude as well. So
They have. I mean, I think he's the guy they have to build around. But they got a lot of good pieces. I think that they can young pieces that they can build around, and
you get an O-line, honestly. That offense, and with Jerry Jackson having a full year as the OC, that offense is going to take a step forward next year in a big way. And on theory and on paper, they should be really good. But we've said that a few times over the past with this organization.
Last time I was on, Jerry Montajong was on, I think. So we were talking about the draft upcoming and how the Elks have the top pick and what is expected to be available. And sounds like O-line is that. So, perhaps that's a way that the O-line is going to get improved is a plug-and-play guy that they draft at the top of the draft this year. Yeah.
Well, that's why, I'll say this. If they could go draft a solid Canadian O-lineman, and they can go sign one solid free agent, I think they need at least two new guys on that O-line this year to solidify it. You got Mark Cordy. You got that one locked down.
Yeah.
I don't know who else. I honestly don't care about the other. In the end, with the other, I don't care who they keep. I don't care who they get rid of type thing. You go slot in two more guys on that team, that O-line, though, that could solidify it. I think they will be a much better team next year. Winnipeg's O-line, every single one's a free agent of their starting O-line for the end. They're all free agents. Some of them are getting older, but some of them you hope that if they at all hit the market, team like Saskatchewan, team like Edmonton should be calling to try to get them to come on board and leave Winnipeg.
Yep.
Although Winnipeg just re-signed Willie Jefferson yesterday.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Or yesterday or the day before. It made me sad. I really like Willie Jefferson, man.
and he's Willie's been that guy in Winnipeg since he went there. He followed Chris Jones to
and that's
Saskatchewan.
why I always thought he'd come back to Edmonton eventually, because he loves Chris Jones. The reason he left Saskatchewan to go to Winnipeg was Chris Jones left.
I'll tell you a story. This was in the before the 2014 season started. Before they'd signed Willie Jefferson, I actually went into Coach Jones' office and they were going over a video. And normally, if I ever needed anything from him, what do you want? And he'd ask me what I wanted. I'd get it. I'd be out. He literally said to me, "Come here," and he showed me a video of Willie Jefferson that they were looking at, and I was just like, "Wow!" He was just like, "I love this kid. We need to get him here." And next thing you know, boom, he signed.
I remember hearing one of his medicals. I think it might have been 15 for the vertical. He kept clearing it. They couldn't get it high enough for him to do it and figure it out. He just kept clearing it. He's just an utter beast.
He's an athletic freak. He's... Yeah.
Why would he not have ended up in the NFL? Is his size a
He
little
went after
undersized?
Edmonton to NFL,
Yes, he did.
And then it just didn't work out. I think he went to Washington. I could be wrong with the team. And I don't know why. Look, there's so many NFL or football players in the States. Willie Jefferson's an athletic freak. I think we could say that about a lot of different players that are playing in college right now.
Remember Dexter McCoy?
Dexter McCoy was amazing.
Dexter McCoy was amazing.
Yeah.
But when he went to the NFL...
Kenny Lawler was amazing.
Was amazing. But when Dexter McCoy went to the NFL, I mean, he's playing linebacker here in the CFL. Yep. He's having to play... Safety.
Yeah.
So you find those... in the States, you can find those guys. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I don't know fully, but up here, it's a little different because...
Aaron Grimes had an NFL shot, and that didn't work out. He's a guy I would love. Man, Aaron Grimes is a phenomenal human, just in general. And I always loved watching him because you got the hair coming out of his helmet, and he would the way he would attack guys, tackle defenders, or tackle guys in the defensive backfield. He was so fun to watch. And then injuries have just hampered him the last couple of years.
He was a part of just an amazing defensive back core that Chris Jones had in 14-15 that ultimately was led by Pat Watkins.
Yeah.
And there was John Ojo. And there was Aaron Grimes. And it was just they were fast, they were physical.
Yeah.
That whole 05 defense I grew up, like, to me, that was one of the greatest defense I ever thought I saw from Edmonton. And I thought that I'd never see a better defense than that. And then like 15 came, and I was like, oh my God, this defense is just unbelievable. Like I preferred watching them on defense than on offense because of how good that they were. And you knew you're there. Well, they're not going to be out there long because they're going to make some sort of play and get the ball, or they're going to get a 2-and-out or something. And Michael Riley in the offense is going to come back out. It was just, I want that defense back in Edmonton. More than the offense, I want that something like that defense back here because that's what wins you championships.
The old Chris Jones defense. If he takes some stuff off of his plate and hands more, I don't. He's not going to give up the GM title, I don't think. But
you can hand responsibilities a bit off.
Right, and so he needs to do that more, and be able to spend more time as a coach. And I think that he really needs to do that to save his own job anyways.
You know what I loved watching with Coach Jones during practices his first year? You saw it a lot with the defense. Like, they're just trying to rip the ball out every opportunity they can when they tackle. But I remember watching one drill one time, he was getting the kickers to do it. Like, line up.
Wow.
And I asked Grant Shaw afterwards, how did you like that? He's like, well, I played DB in junior with the Huskies. Yeah. Or he was with the Huskies?
No, I'm not sure.
I can't remember. He played junior football.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was with the Huskies or
Wildcats.
Or no, he might have been with the Hilltops. I can't remember.
Okay.
I think he was with the Huskies.
I thought he was local.
He's local.
He is local. I'm pretty sure he's
kid,
Huskies. Anyway, he was like, "Oh yeah, I played DB." He's like, "Have you ever had to do that before at the pro level?" He's like, "Hell no." Yeah. But it was just fun. And Coach Jones said, I remember I can't remember who asked him during the media scrum, "Why are you getting the kickers to do it?" He's like, "You never know if they need to make a tackle."
Well, Grant Shaw's another big body kicker. I mean, he could stick his nose in there and make a tackle, where Sean White and Sergio Castillo, no.
But Dean Faithful could.
Yeah.
He was, I remember talking to him. I think he was a defender in soccer.
Oh, boy.
So he knew how to. So we saw him make actually a couple tackles this year where there could have been a couple return touchdowns, but Dean Faithful stepped up and made a play, and it's like, yeah, there's the defender coming out.
So, talk about kickers. The Cowboys in the NFL have a rookie kicker who's 30-something years old, like
Aubrey.
Comes from a soccer background.
Yeah.
And he hasn't missed a field goal yet this year. Like,
don't jinx it, Murray.
Well,
you don't want. We're getting to the important part of the season now.
Maddie's knocking on wood for all the Cowboys fans out there right now.
Well, for Murray here,
But my God, like, maybe teams should be finding kickers from soccer more like that.
Well, that was
crazy.
what Randy Ambrosi wanted with CFL 2.0. He wanted to go get global players, and I remember at the press conference in 2018, he mentioned specifically kickers, and I was like, Jesus, Randy, talk about other players. You don't have to go. Like, we get that you're going to find the kickers, but try to find other players too with this big plan that you're throwing out there. There shouldn't be a big thing about just finding kickers.
Find some old linemen.
Yeah, exactly. All of that. That's it for the Hangout for today. Awesome. Gents, really appreciate you coming in.
Always flies by. 2 hours.
Always does.
I know.
Gone.
It's always a good conversation. Coming up next here on Edmonton Sports Talk, we will have the Lock Shop Dusty and Huss coming up at 11 and then at noon. Oilers skate was at 10:30 today, I think they had because it's a 7:30 game tonight against Carolina. So Tom Gazzola will be on with Dusty for the Oil Stream, and then we'll have the Oil Stream pregame show. Since it's a 7:30 game, at 6 o'clock, the pregame show will start. And one of our friends of EST, Oilers Live from Heavy Hockey Network, they're actually going to be on at 5 today. So we'll have you covered with some Oilers content from 5 o'clock up until puck drop at 7:30. And then Tommy will be back with the Oil Stream postgame show later tonight as him, YouTube Trev, Matt Cassidy, they'll recap the Oilers' first game back since last Thursday when they defeated the Winnipeg Jets. The Oilers with a 4-game winning streak going into tonight's game against the Hurricanes.
Predictions tonight, guys.
Yeah.
Oh.
Do the Oilers make it 5?
6-5 win.
Oh, you want me to go?
You're the guest.
All right. I'm gonna go against you, Murray. I'm gonna say 5-3 loss.
I'll break the tie, I guess, and I'll Oilers are rolling a little bit. I'll stick with it. I'll see what happens, and I'll say the Oilers take this game 4-2. Or 2. They're going to win this one. Empty netter late. I'll throw that in there. So it'll be a 3-2 hockey game. They'll get the empty netter. And the
Ryan
Oilers will
McLeod
won 5 straight.
get his second empty net
Is that
goal of
what's
the year.
Connor Brown will get a goal.
Connor Brown,
No,
he'll
he won't. But Connor McDavid will get 4 points.
Oh, if he gets 4 points, that'll be a fun night for Oiler fans down at Rogers Place.
Yes.
Murray, Jason, appreciate you as always for coming in on
Thank you.
the Hangout. On behalf of Murray and Jason, I'm Matt Iwanyk. Thanks for tuning to the EST Hangout Lock Shop coming up next in mere minutes right here on Edmonton Sports Talk, edmontonsportstalk.com, and our YouTube channel.